Here's the harsh truth. Most books don't even sell 100 copies. That's broken. In this video, I want to walk you through the proven path from blank page to 10,000 copies sold. My company, selfpublishing.com, we've helped thousands of authors through this process. So this is what works, not theory. In this video, I'm going to teach you three things. Number one, why 80% of authors are choosing to self-publish instead of traditionally publishing, and why you should do the same thing. Then lesson two, we're going to walk through how to get your rough draft done in as little as a weekend without writing a single word. Now, I know that sounds crazy because it is, but I'm going to walk you through a proven process that we've used with thousands of authors. And then number three, I'm going to teach you how to launch successfully. So how do you sell 1,000 copies of your book in the first 30 days? How do you generate $10,000 in royalties or clients in the first 90 days? I'll walk you through the process for that. That's going to automatically put you in the 1% of all authors. You're going to want to stick around to the end of this video because if you do, I'll give you a free copy of my brand new book called Published. Now, quick disclaimer as I get into this video, because we get asked this all the time. This process works in any genre, any language, any country. We've published over 7,000 books in 91 plus countries. So you name it, we've published it. You see all these books behind me, all these books around them. If I put all the books that we've published into this room, you wouldn't be able to see me, okay? So today I'm gonna mostly focus on nonfiction, but this applies in any genre that you're writing in. And then lastly, we've published over 100 books in the last 90 days, and we found that there's 5 traits that all of those successful authors have in common that you can replicate. So I'm gonna drip those kind of Easter egg style throughout the training today. Let's dive in. When I was 16 years old, my dad handed me this book. This book is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And this book changed my life. It introduced me to a couple concepts I now wholeheartedly believe in. The first one is that books change lives. How many of you have had your life changed by reading a book? If your hand's not up or you're not putting something in the comments right now, you should probably read more. Because the smartest, most successful people on the planet have written and published a book on the best things that they know. And for $15 and a handful of hours, we can learn the best things that they know. I call it a $15 mentor, right? So this book was my first $15 mentor. It showed me that books change lives. It also introduced me to this concept of passive income through real estate. And I got really excited about this concept, but then I realized I'm 16. I don't have $40,000 to put down on a duplex. So I kind of gave up on passive income, went off to school to College of Charleston to learn how to run a business. Now, pretty quickly once I got there, I realized I'm learning how to run a business from professors who have never ran businesses. That made absolutely no sense to me, so I decided to drop out. Now, right before I dropped out, I studied abroad in Austria. You can see there's a picture of me snowboarding in Austria. A few days before that picture was taken, I published my first book. Okay, this was a book about kind of some of the early companies that I had started and ran. And I remember being on the chairlift, kind of going back up the mountain snowboarding. And I remember a friend asking, he said, "Chandler, I heard that you published this book. I heard that it's doing pretty well. Question for you, is the book making any money?" And I thought for a second. I said, "You know what? Actually, yes. While we were snowboarding all day yesterday, the book made $400. All right, now that might not be a life-changing amount of money for you, but it was life-changing for me. It was one of those moments where once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? I just got paid $400 while snowboarding. And this is not just my grandma and my mom anymore reading this book. This is people all around the world and countries that I'd never even been to reading this book and having their life changed as a result of this book. So to answer his question, did the book make any money? Yeah, it started making a few $1,000s a month in royalty checks, and it continued to pay the bills even as I dropped out of school. And so what I realized, and forgive the cheesy analogy, but a book is kind of like a key that opens the door to Narnia, right? Maybe you've seen Chronicles of Narnia, read the book, seen the movies. If you have, you know that they discover this door to this magical world that they didn't previously know existed. Well, a book, for me and for so many authors that we've helped, a book is that key. It opens up this magical world that only exists for published authors. So if you're not taking notes on this video, now's a great time to start. And I'd love for you to write out this phrase at the top of your page. The phrase is "because of my book." All right, I want you to dream with me for a second. A year into the future, 3 years into the future, what does your personal version of Narnia look like? What's that thing that you want your book to open up for you? While you're kind of dreaming about that, thinking about that, I'll give you an example of what happened for me. And again, remember, I was 19 years old with no audience, no master plan, no huge strategy. I just said, hey, I think this book can help people. and I put it out there, and I did everything I could to get it in as many hands as possible. And the book started selling. And so because of my book, I started getting interviewed for top podcasts. I got featured on the Huffington Post. I got offered a 7-figure digital publishing deal. I built an email list. I didn't even know what an email list was. But now we had thousands of people on this email list because of the book. And that book led to me starting a business. So what I learned in this process and what I've seen unfold through the thousands of authors that we've helped is that a book is the best and the fastest way to grow your impact, your income, and your business if you have one. We call this leveraged impact, right? You do the hard work. You create this book once, and then that book goes on to impact thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people. But it's the best and the fastest way to grow your impact, your income, and your business if you have one. Now, if we haven't met yet, why you should listen to me. My name's Chandler Bolt. I'm from a small town in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, called Walhalla, South Carolina. I've written and published 7 books myself, including this one. Like I mentioned earlier, my company, selfpublishing.com. We've published thousands of authors. We publish about 2 to 5 books a day. All right. Now, selfpublishing.com is a business I've grown from 0 to over $75 million in the last decade. And this helped me land on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. And I did this despite being a C- English student. So I promise, if you're watching this video, you're probably more qualified to write a book than I was. So let's dive in with lesson number 1, which is self-publishing versus traditional publishing. What are the pros and cons? Which one should you choose? So you may or may not know this, but there's been a massive shift in the publishing industry over the last couple of decades. And it's a shift away from traditional publishing and towards self-publishing. Self-publishing used to be the backup plan. Let's be real. It was the thing that you only did if you couldn't get a publishing deal, but now it's the preferred option for most authors. Why is that? There's kind of a few main reasons. It starts with distribution. So it used to be that the only way that you sold books was to get into bookstores. The only way to get into bookstores was to have a publisher. The only way to have a publisher was to have an agent. And, right? There's kind of all these gatekeepers and middlemen in that process. Well, now 70% of all books sold are sold on Amazon and other online retailers, and you don't need a publisher to publish on those platforms. So that's really kind of democratized the publishing industry and put the power back in the hands of authors. What about these other differences, though? So first is royalty rates. So if you self-publish, you'll make somewhere between 20 to 70% royalty per book. If you traditionally publish, it's more like 8 to 12%. Now, what that looks like is traditionally published $1 a book, maybe, if you're lucky. Right? And then self-published, it might be $3, $4, $5 a book, maybe even more than that. And so where this really starts to compound is in your first 10,000 copies sold. Traditionally published, you're lucky if you see a dime from those. Self-published, you might make 20, 30, 50 grand or more in royalty checks. What about the cost, though? Right? Well, obviously, if you're traditionally publishing, they're covering the costs for you in exchange for taking the lion's share of the royalties. And then there's kind of hybrid or vanity publishing. Maybe you've heard of that. That's essentially where you're paying someone to publish your book. Typically, right? You might pay them $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, and they're often also taking a percentage of the royalties. And then there's self-publishing, right? And so that's where I like to say self-publishing is entrepreneurial publishing. You're betting on yourself. So that means you cover the upfront costs, but that also means that you keep the upside. Now, if you don't know what you're doing here, this can cost 10, 20, 30 grand or more. If you do know what you're doing, this can cost a few $1,000. All right, so this is one of the big ways that we help people at selfpublishing.com is our goal is to save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in the process. We can help with the editing, the cover design, the formatting, a bunch of the expenses in the process. Now, what about the other costs, though? This is a cost that not a lot of people consider, and that's the cost of your time. How much do you value your time? If it's $20 an hour, well, every 5 additional hours that you invest into this book, well, that's $100 of your time. So if you think about it like that, well, traditionally published, it's going to take a minimum of 2 years. That's a lot of time. Self-published, it might take a year or it might take a decade, depending on how self-disciplined you are. And then what we find is on average with our authors at selfpublishing.com is typically they get their book done within 9 to 18 months. So our goal is to save you hundreds of hours in that process, and as a result, save thousands of dollars worth of your time, right? So long and short of it is, for 99.9% of you watching this video, it makes more sense to self-publish. The only time it might make sense to traditionally publish is if you've got a massive audience and you can get a big advance, and even then, you should think twice. So this brings me to the 5 things, remember those 100 plus authors we've helped publish in the last 90 days. Well, the 5 things they have in common, the first one is they chose to self-publish. They realized they could go faster, further by self-publishing their book. And so let's dive into lesson number 2. How do you actually write this dang thing? I know for some of you, this is the hardest part. Maybe this is the most intimidating part. So I'd love to do a quick poll here. How many of you know what you want to write about? If that's you, you can type, I have an idea in the comments. Or how many of you aren't quite sure? If that's you, you can type not sure in the comments. Or how many of you have too many ideas? All right. If that's you, you can type too many ideas in the comments. My goal here is to be helpful no matter where you're at. So the first part that I teach here is what I call the idea finder. Okay. Feel free to take a picture of this slide. And so really, this is just a few questions to ask to come up with or clarify the idea that you're writing about. All right. So what do you get paid for? Or what's your expertise? That's the best place for most people to start, because chances are you have months or years of experience on that thing. Well, guess what? If I were to try to do what you do today, there would be this gap between what I know on day one and what you know in all of your years of experience. Well, in that gap is a really great book. So other questions you might ask is, what's a topic that you're passionate about? What do people constantly ask you questions about? You know a lot about this thing. Or if you're a business owner, this is a big one. What are the broken record conversations that you keep having with every new client or prospect? So hopefully we've got some ideas flowing. I'll give you some examples here. So this is one of our authors, Kat Wonders. She has a passion for yoga. She turned that passion for yoga into a book. She turned that book into a business. So she says, thanks to my successful launch, the book has brought in over $30,000 in sales within a month of launch. So she got 10 clients at $3,000 a piece, all that found her because of her book. Right. Here's another example. This is a fiction example. So this is Ashley Emma, one of our fiction authors. So we've actually got a whole fiction arm of the company. This is our fiction book by R.E. Vance, who runs the fiction department. Right. So there's a fundamentals of fiction arm of the company. There's a full-time fiction arm of the company. So this is Ashley Emma. She said, hey, I have personal life experience. I want to turn that into a fiction book. That fiction book has done incredibly well, turned it into a series, selling like crazy. And then I know a bunch of people want to write a memoir or maybe, a story about personal life experience. And so this is Lisa Fleetwood. We also have a memoir arm of the company. And believe it or not, memoirs are a lot more like fiction than nonfiction because it's a story, right? You're just the main character. And so we helped her with this memoir that's selling really well. So hopefully we got some ideas kind of spinning here. Now, what if you said, hey, I'm in that too many ideas camp? Well, one of our biggest rules when we work with people is you can't write more than one book at a time. Try to catch 2 rabbits, you'll end up catching neither. So you got to focus on one idea and write that one book first. How do you do that though? Well, you ask yourself these 3 questions, okay? Question 1, which one can I finish the fastest? So maybe you have the most content or life experience around that topic. Question 2, which one am I most likely to finish? So not only am I going to get started, but I'm going to take this thing all the way to the finish line. And then question 3, which one's going to make me happy, right? Which one am I going to enjoy writing? I'd love for you to use those 3 questions, try and narrow in on your one idea, and then let's use that one idea to write your draft. Now, I mentioned earlier, I hated writing. I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD. Okay, so if there was a least likely to publish list, it would just be me with my face. I didn't like it. I wasn't good at it. But I'm a big fan of this concept. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Who Not How. So Who Not How, if you haven't heard of it, says anytime I run into a problem in my life or in my business, I ask the question, who has solved this before, not how do I solve it, right? Because if I figure out the who, well, then they know the how, and I can pay them for a shortcut, right? So I asked that question when I wrote my first book. I found a mentor who had done it before. I said, hey, how'd you do this? And he introduced me to kind of the how to get started. And so it was a kernel of an idea that became part of a framework that we teach called the MORE writing method. Okay, MORE is an acronym. The M stands for mind map. You've heard of a mind map, probably. This is not a new concept. What's new is using it. So mind map is the first step in the process. I teach that whole process in this book right here. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to grab a blank sheet of paper. You're going to write your book idea in the middle of the page. Now, feel free to pause this video right now. Only if you pinky promise me you're going to come right back. All right. Feel free to pause this video, grab a blank sheet of paper, take 2 minutes, write your book topic in the middle of the page, And then step 2, I want you to write out everything that you can think of on this topic, right? So what are the stories that you have? What are the lessons that you've learned, books that you've read, ideas that you have, broken record conversations you keep repeating over and over again? You'll be amazed. So many people have done this process, and then you realize I've got so much more to write about than I thought. And so at the end of that 2 minutes or maybe 15 minutes, you'll have something that looks like this, right? You've got a mind map that's starting to be formed, and then you can use that mind map to move to the O in the more writing method, which stands for outline. Okay, maybe you already started doing this intuitively, but you're going to start to group groups of ideas into themes or sections. Let's say you got 5 groups, 5 sections. Order those sections in the order that you want to cover them in the book. Drill down about 3 chapters per section. Now all of a sudden you've got about a 15 chapter outline that you can use to write the rough draft of your book, 1 chapter at a time. Now that moves to the R, which is rough draft. You're going to write this rough draft 1 chapter at a time using this process. So you'll mind map, outline, write the chapter, repeat that process chapter by chapter. Or how many of you speak better than you write? If you're like me, I feel like I speak better than I write. Well, then just do that. This kind of becomes a choose your own adventure. You'll mind map, outline, speak the chapter, get it transcribed, repeat that process chapter by chapter. This process is so easy to follow that an 8-year-old can do it. And an 8-year-old did it. So we had a guy named Sean Sumner. He worked with us as a physical therapist to write a book on kind of the things that he was encountering in his practice. And then his daughter saw him do it. Okay. And so parents, your kids are watching. And she said, Dad, I want to do that too. He said, okay, go write 50, maybe 500 words, come back to me. And she did. And then next thing he knew, they were at Panera Bread on Saturday mornings writing the book. She was able to publish it a few months later. The book made a few $1,000s in the first month of her launch. She donated a ton of money to an autism awareness charity. Beautiful thing. Now she gets an allowance every month, and it's her book royalties. Right? And if you just think about the trajectory of her life, how that's changed. She did a speaking gig at her school, made $1,800. They paid her an honorarium. She sold all these books. So this process works if you work it, and it works even for an 8-year-old. Okay. So this brings me back to the 5 things those 100+ authors did. Number 2, they committed to getting their rough draft done. This is an important point, y'all. Until you get your rough draft done, nothing else matters. Now you're going to want to be distracted by everything but getting your rough draft done. And we've just seen, taking thousands of authors through the process, that's the demarcation point. Right? People get their rough draft done. They start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. They start to believe that this is possible. They don't, they fall off. So until you get your rough draft done, and especially if we end up working together, we're going to help keep you laser focused on getting that rough draft done. Let's dive in with lesson number 3. So how do you successfully launch this book to generate royalties and clients? Now, I mentioned earlier I dropped out of school. I thought, look out world, here I come. I'm going to be an overnight success. I had a mentor one time. He said, Chandler, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And I found that to be true because what actually happened for me personally is about 18 months later, I woke up to this. Okay, this is all my bank accounts are negative. I'd borrowed $15,000 in what I call triple F financing. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I call it triple F financing. It's friends, family, and fools. These are the only people dumb enough to give you money at this stage of your business. I'm in the hole and it's not going well, right? I remember going to make myself some food and all I had were these 2 end pieces of a loaf of bread and some peanut butter. And so I made myself a double end piece peanut butter sandwich, which is just as dry and disgusting as you're thinking right now. This isn't good, right? This wasn't going well. But again, I'm asking that question like, hey, who's figured this out before? Surely I know someone who solved this problem. So I asked that who, not how question, found a mentor, asked him, what am I doing wrong? How do I fix it? And he said, Chandler, you need to meet Sam. I said, perfect. Who's Sam? Why do I need to know him? He said, Sam is sales and marketing. Sam is sales and marketing. Dang it. That is not the answer I wanted to hear. I didn't like sales and marketing. I don't know if you're like me, but I didn't like it. And so I said, hey, there's only one problem with that advice. I don't like Sam. I don't even know him. And he said, Chandler, I'm going to hit you with a hard truth, which if you're watching this video right now, you're in that boat. I'm going to hit you with this hard truth. With love. He said, Chandler, you don't have to like it. You do have to learn it. Woo! You don't have to like it, but you do have to learn it. If you build it, they will not come. Okay? You got to tell them about it. If you're passionate about this book, you want to change lives through this book. You want to grow your business through this book. You can't change someone's life if they don't read the book. They can't read the book if they don't buy the book, and they can't buy the book if they don't know about it. And knowing about it means you getting good at sales and marketing. And so I took that to heart. I, quite frankly, had no other option. I started just learning everything I could about sales and marketing. I used what I learned to launch another book. I used that book to launch a business. In the first 55 days, that book brought in over 3,300 leads and over $92,000 in sales for my business. Started unlocking my personal version of Narnia, right? I got featured on the Business Insider. We went from 0 to 1.32 million in sales over the next year. And the best part is that book still brings in leads, still brings in business every single month. So what I want to walk you through here are the 3 steps that I used to successfully launch this book and the 3 steps that you can use to successfully launch your book. So step 1 is to get a good cover that grabs attention. People say don't judge a book by its cover, right? But we all judge books by their cover, so you need to have a good one. I'll use my book as an example here, shamelessly. I think this is a good cover. Maybe you disagree. You can let me know in the comments. But so a good book cover really has 3 things, okay? So number 1, it grabs attention. You notice this cover grabs attention. Number 2, the title is easy to read, and it's preferably in the upper third. And then number 3, your prospect or potential reader instantly understands what the book's about and whether or not it's for them. So what do you think this book's about, right? It's about how to publish a book. It's super straightforward. People need to instantly get it. Now, there's a whole chapter on creating a good cover in this book. So grab the book if you haven't already. I recommend the audiobook. I narrate it. But page 89, there's a diagram on how to create a cover. Chapter 11, there's a whole chapter on the process. So that's step 1. Steps 2 and 3, okay, there's also chapters in this book, full chapters on each of these steps. So step 1, build a launch team. Step 2, get reviews. Those are really, really important. Now I'll kind of go high-level overview, 2 birds, 1 stone here. A launch team, if you've never heard of it, it's a small group of people who support you or the topic of your book. Could be 15 people, 50 people, 100 plus. If you do nothing else to launch your book, do this one thing, okay? So there's 2 sides of the coin. There's what they agree to do and then what they get in return, right? So what they agree to do is to read the book ahead of time and leave a review on day 1. That's the most important thing because now you're launching with all these reviews, right? And then what they get in return is a free digital copy of the book. Maybe you put their name in the digital copy of the book. They get to be a part of this launch team. People love supporting authors, and they love being part of launch teams. Okay, so this is really, really effective. Now, what happens when you follow these steps? Okay, here's a fun example that I love. Eileen Wilder, she was on a training just like this. At the end of the training, she said, Chandler, I don't even fully know what I want to write about, but I trust you. I trust the process. Let's work together. She booked a call with my team, signed up to work with us. We helped her publish this book. It's called The Brave Body Method. Self-published. Awesome book. This book did so well that next thing she knew, she was front and center in Barnes & Noble doing a book signing, right? So this process works if you work it. Now let's break down kind of the mechanics of how do you have a $10,000 launch? What does that actually look like? Okay, so there's kind of 2 paths here. There's book royalties, and then there's using the book to grow your business. So book royalties, you want to maximize your sales, right? Because let's say 3 years from now, you sell 100 copies of a book in a random month. Well, that's a few $100 in mailbox money that's just still showing up. So one of the simplest things that you can do, I see a lot of authors make this mistake, is publish your book in all formats. So ebook, print, audio. A lot of people don't do that. You're missing out on sales, right? Maybe you heard me mention my audiobook and you're going to get it. Well, if I didn't have an audiobook, maybe you don't even read books, or your ideal reader, maybe they don't read, but they would listen to the audiobook. So publish your book in all 3 formats. You'll sell a lot more copies. You'll make a lot more money in royalties. And then secondly, use the book to grow your business, right? So I don't know, whether you're starting a business with a book like I did, or whether you're scaling a business using a book like I'm doing, use the book in the business. This book right here has brought in about $7 million in sales over the last 12 months, tens of millions of dollars in sales overall, right? People buy it, they read it, they book a call with my team, they sign up to work with us. So if you integrate this into your onboarding experience, your client experience, it's going to be the best thing that you ever do to grow your business. I've got whole other videos on that process of how we use a book to grow the business like crazy. But that's the second piece. Use the book to grow your business. I'll give you a couple examples here. The first one is Otakara Kletke. So she says 9 months bestseller, over 10,000 copies sold. Thank you, SPS. So we helped Otakara publish her book. She says, if you're on your journey, don't give up. When you publish a Kindle book, don't stop and make it all formats. I wouldn't be selling over 1,000 books a month if I didn't do that. So publish in all formats. All right. And then here's another fun example. I love this one. This is David McKay. So David signed up to work with us, published 2 books in 90 days, which I think is still a record. Crazy. But he emailed me the other day. He said, hey, it's been a year since I signed up. Those books have brought in over $10,000 in royalties. Awesome. But more importantly, over $45,000 in business generated from his book, right? So customers that found his business because of his book, he says he's getting about 30 to 40 leads per week from those books, which entrepreneurs, you know what you could do with an extra 30 to 40 leads a week. And the best part is, instead of paying for leads, he's getting free leads. And in a lot of cases, he's getting paid to get those leads because they bought his book. All right. So this brings me back to the 5 things that those 100+ authors have in common that we've helped publish over the last few months. Number 3, they became friends with Sam. Okay. You don't have to like it, but you do have to learn it. If you build it, they will not come. You got to tell them about it. And so that means becoming friends with Sam, or at least, like dating a little bit and maybe saying, hey, let's hang out. So you got to become friends with Sam if you want to sell more copies of your book. And so let's recap what we covered so far. We got a few more things to cover. So we talked about 3 things. Number 1, self-publishing versus traditional publishing. What are the pros and cons? Which one should you choose? Number 2, we talked about how to write your book in as little as a weekend, right? So we walked through the steps to do that, the more writing method. And then number 3, we talked about the 3 steps to successfully launch, to sell books, generate royalties, and bring in clients. The question I get asked all the time at this point is, Chandler, will this work for me and where I'm at? I haven't even started, or I've already published. It's not going that well. And then the bigger question is, hey, can you just help me implement some of this stuff? Like, I've got a job, I've got a business, I got kids. I don't know if I have time to do this. Can you just help me implement? And the answer to both of those questions is yes. This is exactly why we created selfpublishing.com. And this is exactly why we're creating the future of publishing. If you haven't heard of us, we're an online education and service company. We help people write and publish books that grow your impact, your income, and your business if you have one. I like to say, what is it? It's kind of like a mix between Indiana Jones and Jillian Michaels. So Indiana Jones, we blaze the trail. Our goal is to save you hundreds of hours, thousands of dollars. We'll do some of the hard work for you. And then Jillian Michaels, we're going to hold you accountable to get the book done, right? Because if you're watching a video like this, obviously this book's important to you, but there's a reason why it's not done. Or if it's done, it's not published or doing as well as you want. And that's because you need that 1-2 punch, right? A proven process and accountability to keep going when it gets tough. Now, more practically, what this looks like and how we help is it's going to start with a one-on-one consultation. We'll learn about your goals, create a custom plan. We'll pair you up with curriculum specific to you, your book, where you're at. We'll also pair you up with a coach who's going to work with you one-on-one throughout the process. You'll get access to hundreds of group coaching calls over the next year, tons of resources to help you get your book done and publish it the right way. And then there's kind of this final mile of publishing. That's what I call it. It's all these things that no matter how you publish, you're going to have to hire a bunch of people, pay people. I mean, you feel like a project manager. It's not fun and it's pretty expensive. So we just do all that stuff for you. Cover design, like I talked about, we'll do it for you. The formatting, the ISBN, the book description, uploading, publishing, distribution. We do all that stuff for you. And the best part is you keep all the rights and royalties, right? So you keep the upside because you're betting on yourself. And so this brings me back to these 5 things that those 100 authors have in common. Number 4, they decided to get help. All of those folks, they were in a similar position to you on a training like this a few months ago, a year ago, and they asked the who question, not the how question. So if you're watching this video right now, you'd love to take the next step with your book. Well, the next step is to book a call, okay? So you can click the link or fill out the form along with this video. And what's going to happen is we set aside time over the next 48 hours to speak with you personally about your book, your goals, your challenges, and how we can help. All right, so you're going to book a call with one of the experts on my team. These are folks who have helped hundreds and in most cases thousands of people just like you take the next steps with their book. Okay, so it'll be about a 45-minute phone call. The cost of this phone call is free. I've covered the cost for you. All you have to do is book a call and then show up for that call. Now, spots are limited, so please only book a call if you're serious about this book, right? If you have high standards of integrity. And then lastly, if you're serious about investing time, money, and energy into the success of this book. So if all those things can be said about you, I want you to go to this URL. It's selfpublishing.com/book consultation. Okay, selfpublishing.com/book consultation. Go ahead and book a call at that link, or maybe you scroll below this video and fill out the form, book a call with the team. So why are we doing this? I mentioned earlier, writing and publishing a book changed my life forever. It's one of the single best decisions that I've ever made in my life. I love helping people. I love giving back. So I know that this call is going to be helpful for you, whether we end up working together or not, right? So we want to be a resource to you. We want to help you, give you next steps, give you resources, whether we work together or not. And then thirdly, I know that a bunch of you probably want to work with us. So on that call, if you're a fit and if you qualify to work with us, we'll talk about what that looks like. Now, I want to be super straight up here. We have thousands of people apply to work with us every month. We only accept a handful of people into the program. So we've got about an 8% acceptance rate. Harvard's acceptance rate is about 5 to 6%. So you could say it's almost as hard to get into selfpublishing.com as it is to get into Harvard. And that's not hyperbole. That's just math, baby. But that's because we care about our authors. So we want to make sure, hey, if we're working together, that you have what it takes, that we can help you, and that you can be successful. So go to the link. Click the link along with this video, selfpublishing.com/book consultation, and book a call with the team. Okay. Now, once you go to that link, you're going to see something that looks a little bit like this, or maybe you're already watching this video and you see this right below, right? So you're going to see a form. So basically all you do is answer a few questions as part of the application process. Click the orange button that says find a time. That's going to load a calendar with some times. Then all you got to do is click the time that's closest to now that works for you. And then once you do that, it's going to take you to a page that looks kind of like this. And on that page, you'll see a video on how to get the most out of that call. There will be kind of some Easter eggs and bonus content on that page that'll be helpful as well. So go ahead and book a call with the team. And this brings me back to number 5 and the 5 things those 100+ authors did. Drum roll. Number 5, they made a decision to get started now. Writing a book for so many people, it's on the maybe someday list. It's on the maybe next year list. They never get around to writing the book, right? Maybe you're thinking that right now. Hey, I don't know if I have time. Maybe someday, maybe next year. Doing this for over a decade, I can tell you that maybe someday becomes maybe never for most authors. They never get around to writing their book. Right? So there's never going to be a perfect time to write your book. You've got to get started before you're ready. Okay? You got to get started before you're ready. There's never going to be a perfect time. And I know that the best way that we can help you is for you to book a call with the team, create a strategy and a plan. I love this quote. It says, a dream without a plan is a wish. So a lot of people are just wishing about their book because they got no plan. We want to help you create a plan on this call. All right. So my goal here today, hopefully, is that you're inspired, right? But more importantly, I want you to implement. So I'm not just in the business of inspiration. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not someone who's just like, hey, let's get excited. I'm in the business of implementation, right? And I know that true lives are changed through books. Books change lives. This book changed my life, right? I've had so many books that have changed my life, but you can't change your life through your book if you don't get started and you don't take the first step. Okay, so click the link along with this video. We look forward to chatting with you soon and hopefully helping with your book. I'll see you soon.